After Sony's State of Play for 2025, it became increasingly obvious that Western gaming development is not keeping up pace with the Eastern game devs that are coming out. And that's what you see with Tides of Annihilation, a game that dominated the talk around Sony's State of Play, around a numerous amount of other titles that have nothing to do with Western games development. And it comes back down to the principle that we've been seeing all across the video gaming industry these past few years, is that Western gaming studios are pretty dumb because they're just not following the standards that the gaming audience is expecting. The gaming audience is expecting unique, fun, actually entertaining and engaging combat and gameplay design with, on top of that, actual beautiful characters and looks and appeals for the designs that they're putting out there. And that's just simply not the prerogative of Western gaming studios. They refuse to make content that is actually engaging and drawing into the gamer base. And this is why we're seeing games like Tides of Annihilation come out and actually pull in an audience, because there's just an extreme lacking of this variation or this type of game. And these developers in the East are grabbing hold of this deep depression in the gaming industry where gamers are searching for this game. Western developers are refusing to make it. And now we're seeing this content pour out of places like China, Japan, Korea, and more than anything, other territories that have an opening to actually succeed and bring about a successful franchise, because there is just no content coming out that is similar to this in the West. And when you look at the content of the West, you're just inundated with games that are just focused on bringing about the ideology that the game player absolutely hates. And I think that's what we're seeing with numerous titles that have come out in the past year or so, where we just have titles that are just focused on bringing in these thoughts and feelings and activist approach to the gaming development space. And this has resulted in a lot of highly politically charged games, but a lot of ugly games. And I think that's the main thing gamers are having a problem with, first and foremost, where ugliness is at the forefront of the thoughts of developers, where they want to strip away the beauty aspects of gaming and introduce something that is truly horrifying to the aesthetic appeal of the gamer and player base. And unfortunately, this ugliness is permeating through all parts of the gaming industry, where you just can't avoid it when you are picking up a title to play, where it's going to be filled with these terrible designs, these terrible animations, and this low quality production of the content that is coming out. And that's why games that are doing the opposite of that, which are mostly coming out from East Asian games, are taking the helm of actually introducing these beautifying elements into the gaming sphere. And I think that's why you're seeing games like Tides of Annihilation, which would not be as popular if it came out in a time where every Western game developer was producing content like this, because there was a time like that where every Western developer was producing beautifully designed characters, skin, and animations that were up to par with the things that we saw in the past. And that is the difference of the current day and the past gaming industry, where now we're getting only the highest quality, the best design, and most interesting, engaging looking characters coming out of Eastern devs. And it's kind of funny when you look at some of these games like the new Tides of Annihilation, it makes you just wonder what happened to Western game developers. Why are they just not focused on producing content like this? And I think this is the idea that we're seeing now kind of spread, that Western gaming is kind of just dumb now. And I think it goes down to the people that are being hired. It goes down to the designers, their, of course, their own personal philosophies, and just their lack of ability of actually producing beautifully designed concepts that meet a high standard that was once the norm. And I think that's the thing that we have to recognize the most. The artists that are being put in power into the gaming industry just don't have the skills to produce this content. You can see this reflected all throughout the industry itself when you see the producers that are creating content for a lot of material that have come out in animation or in gaming. You see a stunning lack of self-reflection, where they are just more focused on reproducing the things that they know, which usually comes down to themselves. And you can see this with a lot of characterization and looks and overall designs of people that they create for their product. I mean, it's no accident that most of the characters that are being designed for a lot of AAA companies reflect and look like people in the staff that are in the writing staff, that are just doing other things at the company. And remarkably so, they just don't look like engaging characters you actually want to play as, because these people are not people that you would really want to play in a fantasy world. And I think that is reflective of the quality of people that are producing content in the gaming industry today, where they even refuse to make a female character look like the actor that plays them, where they rather ugly up and reduce the look and appeal of that character because it just doesn't fit into their image of what a character is supposed to look like. It goes down to their philosophies of what is body positive, what is more attainable in real life. It gets mired in their personal insecurities. And I think this is reflected even more so when you look at the male characters who don't care about how they look, and they look exactly how they look in real life. It just smacks in the face of the actual skill of the people that are producing this content, because they do have the skill to make a one-to-one recreation, but we don't see that recreation done for female characters. And I think this is the result of Western gaming being stuck in a dumb ideology. That's why Western gaming is dumb now, because they refuse to produce content that is good because it goes against their ideology of what they want to see accepted by the gamer and player base. That's why when people saw Tides of Annihilation trailer at Sony State of Play, they automatically saw the beautiful character and quickly thought, oh, this can't be a Western game. This has to be an Asian developer and probably a Chinese developer. And you can narrow it down just by the look of the character now, where you can just look at a character. If it's beautiful, you know it's impossible for a Western game dev to actually produce a character that looks like that. And most people that thought that way were particularly right. And me, even more so, I said this is a Chinese developer, because even Japanese devs, if they do have a beautiful character, they have to force some sense of inclusivity somewhere to actual balance out the beauty of the character. You can see this with Monster Hunter Wilds, which I still think is a great game, but you can see them trying to balance Western ideals with their personal ideals. And then you don't see that with Chinese developers. They're just putting out stuff that they think is going to sell. And of course, it does sell. And you can see this response actually being successful because Chinese developers dominated the state of play with the conversation, at least. Of course, we had big titles like Monster Hunter Wilds and Metal Gear Solid that were expected to dominate the conversation, but a lot of these Chinese developers, like Lost Soul Aside and Tides of Annihilation, took up the conversation as well. And it just kind of goes down to the uglification of Western game development design in comparison to Eastern games, where Eastern game developers are more inclined to actually make a profit rather than stand on their political beliefs. And this is reflective on the growing trend of a lot of developers going eastward for their financing, even design improvements. You can see this with Phantom Blade Zero, which got a substantial investment because of the success of multiple other titles in the Chinese games development sphere. And this is just showing that there is a growing temptation for even Western game developers to seek aid in producing games in China. But I don't know how that's going to work because they're producing a lot of trash right now. I don't think China is going to be supportive of failing titles that are not going to attract a fan base. And this kind of goes to show the increased influence of a lot of Chinese developers right now, where they're attracting the talent and growing a large talent base to produce content at a quicker pace. This is what Japanese devs are saying right now, where Chinese developers are growing so quickly and producing a high quantity of games so fast that it's going to change the gaming industry. And this is the consequence of the Western games development sphere abandoning beautiful character designs, making things that are attractive and appealing to the customer base that gamers actually want to play. And I think the result of that is that we're going to see most of the best games in the next few years and maybe 10 years come out of China, Japan, and Korea. And that is a stark contrast to what we expected to see, especially with the titles that are just coming out this year that I'm hyped for. I can see that happening with Lost Soul Aside, Tides of Annihilation, Phantom Blade Zero. These are titles that look demonstrably better than anything that we're seeing coming out the West. And it makes me kind of feel that gaming has completely shifted away from development within the Western games development sphere and have moved eastward. And it's probably never coming back because the game developers here are truly dumb right now. They're dumb with their own personal ideologies. They're dumb with their design. They're dumb with their development skills. And they're dumb in general with what they believe is marketable to a fan base of gamers that are dedicated to playing games that are actually entertaining to themselves and their friends. And I think that underestimation of the gamer player base is the demise of Western gaming. But that's just my thoughts on the situation. Maybe you disagree with me. Maybe you think that's not the case. I'd like to hear your thoughts on the situation. Tell me what you think. Like, comment, share, subscribe. This is Wagner Knows Why. Catch you next time.